Welcome to Zen Money Monday, weekly conversations with innovators, thought leaders, and entrepreneurial junkies about building good businesses, exploring what the idea of Zen money really means, and how to achieve it. With your host, author, business strategist, and Zen Money CFO, Liz LaJoy.
RItu, I'm excited to have you here today so we can talk about business and productivity.
Thank you for having me.
So I did a little intro about how you got to where you are and just that I was excited to talk with you, but I really want to do a few things today. One, I think that your story is really interesting because you have built a successful legal firm, law firm, helping people with immigration law. But then a couple of years ago, maybe more, you also started legal productivity solutions, and you've morphed into this whole other consulting thing too. And so you're running two businesses at the same time, which not everybody's capable of doing. So I really wanted to talk with you today about what's been going well with your business and how all that came to be.
Sure. Do you want me to talk about it? Do you have a specific question?
I was going to follow up with a question, but yeah, I'm curious what happened to start off with, what happened in your history, because you had built a very successful over more than 10 plus years in business as an immigration attorney. What caused the shift for you in terms of like, hey, I want to not drop that, or I want to do something.
Well, let me address all that. Yes. Because you actually know the ins and outs of those years. Yeah. It wasn't so smooth when it was happening, but in retrospect, I can talk about it and help people, right? Like most things. Exactly. So I started my own law firm in 2008. And for those, your audience is entrepreneurs, right? So before that, like the beginning of my career, like the first 8 years of my legal career, I had a few jobs, but it wasn't what I wanted. It wasn't satisfying. I wasn't able to move up. And then it was like, okay, I guess I'll start my own firm. So I think that can resonate with people. I guess I have to do it my way. Yeah. And so I didn't know what I was doing at all. It's good with a law firm. You don't need, or, a lot of these I didn't have an online business, but any kind of service industry, I didn't need much to start. I needed a computer and an office. And then when I had money, I would buy books. Back then we had books. So it was like in 2008. And in the beginning I had part-time jobs. So I did all these things looking back, and I'm like, oh, I would tell people to do this. I didn't take out any loans. I just went back to my previous employers and worked part-time. And that was actually helpful because then I was still practicing. And then I was able to get clients and grow that. And when I had enough clients, enough income, I could let the job go. And I did that. I was involved in the community and doing things. So I got to a point where I had staff. I had 2 full-time staff. I had 2 office spaces. And so things were running so well. So then I started pursuing my own interests. I think I don't know if I've told you this story. This is where it all started. See what happens? You have the business going, the income was steady. Everything was fine. You call it successful. I learned that from you. It was successful. And then I started pursuing things for me. And so what I was always interested was wellness and Ayurveda, which is a science about taking care of our health. And I would be out of town. I would leave to go study, to do these certification programs, and leave my staff to run the office. And I would be gone, and they were used to it. And so, but over time, I'm like, oh, I like this. I think that I could help lawyers with this, because actually what I was learning was helping me be a better lawyer and supervisor, and helping me be able to leave the office, which all my clients have trouble with. You're a person outside the office. And so I started to take on clients. We had internships and things with I started to take on clients, and I just basically had a side hustle, side business, doing wellness. And I don't know, skip ahead. I think it was 2017. The books are behind me, just like yours are. I was noticing with my lawyer clients that we'd have these great sessions, and I would give them good information, and I taught them the way I was taught to teach wellness and health, but they wouldn't do any of the things. And then they'd come back a few months later, I read something that says this, whatever, that meditation helps productivity. And I'm like, I've been telling you that. And they're like, now I'm going to start to meditate. So I was just I need to write more and I need to write a book. That's what I knew I needed to do. And And then just thinking about the book, I came up with this system, and one thing led to another. And then I was like, it just started growing. And then I had both businesses. So the last 3 years, I think it's been, I sought out your services too. Like, okay, I'm building this business. And you're like, but you already did it. I'm like, but I don't know what I did. And I didn't want to do it the same way. And I think you know this, like, I didn't want to I couldn't have another job. I had 2 businesses. Having a part-time job is different than having a second business. I think everyone knows this. Like looking back, I'm like, oh, that was a great decision. I worked for someone else and they paid me like hourly or a salary, and I practiced law. Like I didn't have to get clients. I didn't have to do
I went
any
in for
marketing.
20 hours a week and I got a paycheck and I walked away at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, of course it wasn't like that because it's law, but it was way, but I didn't have to do any of the business stuff, right? Like I was
legal
able to,
equivalent of
yeah, exactly. I know I had a half-time job. I'm like, I don't think I can do this in half-time, but I had my, that's like when it all started. I'm like, I have to set boundaries because I have my business to grow. Yeah. And so this time around, I worked with you and other service providers, and I invested a lot more in the beginning, time and money, to kind of actually set up an entity, to set up like my finances properly in the beginning. And it's been really great because there's so much more marketing. I feel like because I have an online business and I'm doing something very specific, which I haven't even, so I work with lawyers now, teaching them productivity and wellness and mindfulness. And it's kind of, it's like what we say, like, maybe it's not a have to have, it's like a want to have. Like I want to be productive. Okay, do I want to invest that now? I don't know, which is different from law. People are in crisis at that moment. There's emergency, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't want to have an emergency business. People do come to me often like, okay, I've tried everything else, but it's a different kind of business that it's a different audience that's more discerning. Like,
well,
okay.
They're actually 2 very different business models, because the law stuff, just like you say, people come to you saying, I need to fill out paperwork. I need your help right now.
Mm-hmm.
And while that's great from a money-making standpoint, potentially, it's also very stressful
Mm-hmm.
because you're constantly in reactionary mode, right? And then it's not that you built a successful business, you managed your time, you had staff. I mean, there is a way to handle it, but it's definitely a different business model than what you're creating with Legal Productivity Solutions, which is really, providing services that isn't like my foot is bleeding, I need to get this stitched up right now, right? It's this sort of low level discomfort that many professional service providers carry, especially attorneys who like have a lot of stress in their lives. But like you say, the sale is different, because in the other version, you didn't have to sell. People came to you and you did the work, and
let people know I'm doing it and do a good job. And it's interesting because I do the same work. People are like, that's very different. They're 2 different business models, 2 different businesses, 2 different clients, but the work I do is the same. People would come to me for their immigration. I would do that. And I think you know this with your financial services, but really I was helping them with their anxiety, with their wellness, with positive thinking, with helping them. So my specialty in my law firm was helping people who had like minor crimes, not felonies, because that's a whole nother thing. But like minor, like have something in your record from a long time ago that you don't want to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
DUIs, domestic violence, shoplifting. Like it was like there's a handful that really affect your immigration, and then you hide because you're like, I don't want to deal with that. And there's usually a time in people's lives where they made bad decisions, I would say. I mean, most of the time, if you have like the one misdemeanor a long time ago, right? If otherwise it's a whole different kind of case. And so you just have to show rehabilitation and to help the client go back, talk about what happened, get their records, clear it out. Like it's very similar to what I do now, but it was great. I had this hook because I'm like, at the end they had a green card, at least they went through the process, that they faced their fears. And so now I'm doing similar work with lawyers, and it's interesting to figure out what is the hook, and so I'm glad you're talking to me about business building, because that's exactly what I'm doing. And I think I'm going to be doing it for a while as everything changes around us and how we see things differently, because that's what's challenging about it. That's what's challenging about my second business. I'm doing the same work. it's still very satisfying. I think, this client work is, my love, and I don't really have to do anything. If clients work with me, I know what to do. It's really how can I reach more people? How can I have a bigger impact? And working with lawyers, if I can teach lawyers how to find that balance and that inner strength, they're passing that on to their clients. So I can reach so many more clients. And I know a lot of people say this, but I really, really believe it, that there's a bigger impact when you work with service providers.
I would agree. And, I think that the legal profession is ripe for sort of needing a different way to look at the work itself and to deal, you and I have talked about this a lot, dealing with the sort of the external assumptions around being an attorney is stressful enough, on top of, deadlines and overload and trying to balance all of these sort of critical things while having a life and having a family and all of that stuff. And I think from my experience in the engineering world and in the medical world, there's not a lot of conversation when you're training to be a professional about how to manage your energy, how to manage yourself so that you don't burn out, so that you don't hate your work.
It's actually the opposite. There's this like reward or something for being burnt out or for working a lot. So it's kind of like people, it's shameful to be like, Ritu, can you help me? I'm like burnt out. In the profession, which is different. It's not shameful to be, well, there's still a shame, but like, to have a criminal record. But you need to talk to a lawyer, and like we've established that the lawyer will help you and you can, come forward in it. But like here, it's like lawyers, me being one, we're kind of skeptical, like, okay, I'm feeling this, everyone's feeling this, like
this is just the deal, right? Like this
Yeah.
is life as a lawyer. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if you take that away, then I'm not a lawyer anymore, and that's not what I do. There are tons of lovely, wonderful, competent coaches who do help lawyers leave the law, and I don't know about so many that help lawyers stay in and have a bigger impact.
Mm-hmm. For sure. I think it's interesting, this transition for you around, because, in terms of how do you get in front of people and people who might be interested in working with you, who are feeling just at that kind of, I'm at a point where I'm officially underwater enough that I have to do something besides taking, a 2-day vacation with my spouse or something like that. And I think what you've done is really interesting because you have so many connections in the legal field and you work with associations, and talk a little bit about how those platforms have helped you get your message out.
Yeah. So when I was doing my side business, and when I was, so my side business was about how to have balance and teaching what I created for myself. I'm like, oh, well, I'm not working crazy like that. And I figured it out. So I was asked to speak at different conferences, and then, that led to more invitations and asked to write. In the immigration lawyer world, I've become known as the wellness person. Right now, I've been appointed as the chair of the brand new, right now, I've been doing this for all this time. This year, we have a well-being committee for one of these bar associations, and that's happening all over. So that's exciting too. The profession is catching up. So I guess to answer your question, like this internal way, it was happening naturally, and then we see a lot of business coaches out there. They're like, get in front of the audience, and it's like I'm already there, right? And I'm learning now to get in front of other audiences, and I think this. I spoke in other countries now, because I thought it was just American lawyers. It's not. Europe, Canada, having the same issues. So, people are reaching out for me to talk to their bar associations, and people are showing up and listening. So it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, for sure. It's been really fun for me to watch the new business, which isn't so new anymore, continue to grow in these kind of exciting ways. What has been the biggest hurdle for you in terms of tracking both businesses together, thinking about them sort of as isolated silos, but then also trying to organize yourself in terms of having time for both of them?
Yeah. So I don't want to sugarcoat this because I want to give good advice. Yeah. That having I joke right now that my immigration law firm's my side hustle, but don't do it that way, anybody, because like we talked about, it's another business. I think this year, you've been following my progress. This year, I finally figured out how to make it more of a job. Seth Godin talks about this. Like, are you an entrepreneur or are you a freelancer?
Mm-hmm.
And then I was just like, I have to make my law firm freelance, even though I'm not working for another attorney, because that's an option too. You can contract with another attorney. That's a great option, right? And have your own business, but just take contract work. So I work directly for clients, but I'm keeping it client based, and it's not about growing the business. It's literally word of mouth, former clients come back. And for you listeners, that's a really fine business model. And I don't know if we talk about it a lot. You don't have to have a big business with marketing, whatever. You could just do whatever you do and tell people you do it and quietly do it. Keep your expenses down and enjoy your life. Have a lifestyle business. So as I've been learning about that, I'm like, oh, I can make that.
So funny. I don't think of that as a lifestyle business. I think of that as like a really traditional one person professional service business. Right. I'm so glad you brought that up, because there's so much noise. I call it noise. And I've talked about this on other episodes, but I feel like there's so much noise, especially in the online space, of bigger, better, must have all the things. And the reality is we don't. And depending on the business type and how many people you want to work with and what your energy is and how productive you can be in your business, which is what we're talking about today, it doesn't have to be overly complicated. Like, you could just be there. And, for you, for example, because we're trying to transition you being able to have a lot of time and space to focus primarily on the coaching work, I think we looked at the numbers and you're like, well, I feel like I can keep the law firm going. That's a nice base income. I want to keep my hand in that. So maybe it's one new client a month. The cases take X amount of time, and that feels really good to you. I think if anyone's listening and has been like striving to think about, I have to do all these things, and you're a service-based business that, let's be honest, we generally build back-end service-based businesses, especially attorneys, accountants, like, people with letters after their names. It's all by referral. So why spend $1 million getting your name on a bus side somewhere, or, whatever with marketing, because you don't need it.
Right. To sustain yourself. No. And there was also I want to address like an identity issue for me and I'm over it. Well, getting over it. I figured out how to be comfortable with it. Is that people were like, oh, you're doing this coaching because immigration law is just so stressful. It's good you're getting out. I'm like, I'm not getting out. Like, I just felt
fascinating.
I felt like, I'm going to say it on your show. It was, I figured it out and I wanted a new challenge and I still love it. And so I was like, okay, how can I do this? And also it's, I do all my own legal work. So I do a lot of admin, and I don't love that. So that's like, but that's the trade-off when you're a freelancer, right? It's like, okay, am I going to hire an assistant? Because then I have that expense, and then you have to
$30 an hour to collate paper when I could just do it in front of the television and take care of it. Yeah. Sure. Yeah.
So it's just a different business model, right? Because you can control it better. Because also if you hire someone, you have to make sure you have the work and justify it. And here it's like, okay, as the work comes in, I'll do it myself. And I know a lot of lawyers who do that their whole lives, their whole careers, do their own work. And it's like, we don't talk about that a lot, but also you can have help. And yeah. And so, so it's both things, having a little extra income, but also still practicing law and having like, looking at it that way, like this, like it's a flip. Like before I was doing the wellness stuff on the side, and now I can practice law on the side. I figured that out too. And that's something I can teach as well. Like, why does it have to be all or nothing? Why does it have to be running two businesses? It doesn't really. You've seen it. Like I've gotten to a place where it's pretty manageable. And I don't even work full time, I don't think. Last time I checked. But I was going to say why I'm putting so much effort into the marketing and the business building is this business is a lot more. It's not freelancing. I am an entrepreneur. I have a message to get out. I want to grow. I want to hire more people. I want, you know, to get big in whatever way I get big, but more about the reach for people and getting my message out. And that's why I write books, even that, you know, like, okay, people that I don't even know are reading the book, or people, I have a podcast also, people are listening to the podcast. So that is business building. We may not ever lead to clients, but it's about spreading the message, and the business has to support those activities.
Yeah, for sure. I'm still thinking about the comment that you're getting from other people being like, oh, you're ditching immigration law to do this other thing. Because I'm just fascinated by that.
Yeah,
because
this is so much harder.
Well, it's harder, but it's also at the core of what you're teaching, right? I mean, the whole concept is, how can we actually have all the things and feel productive and not overwhelmed in the process?
Yeah, I think it's all we get grabby or chasey, like someone else has figured it out. Like, it can't be true. It can't be true that I can have this, that I can still practice law. And so that it's like our brain does, like, okay, she must not be practicing law. That's how she's able to do this.
She's half-assing it. She's
Yeah,
not really
yeah.
in it for the real. She's checked out.
Just to make themselves, like, to make it make sense, because what I'm teaching doesn't make any logical sense. Really, you have to think outside the box. Yeah, that's interesting. It's good to think about that again.
Yeah. Can you explain so from a productivity standpoint, because I think this is something that particularly in professional services, but I see it with people building in the online space too, there is so much stress and there's so much, we could be doing this work, the business building work or legal work or whatever, 24/7, you know, if we chose to. And I think a lot of people fall into the habits of doing that. Do you have any suggestions as a productivity guru about how to manage all of the stuff?
Yeah, especially since I have my side job too, and I try not to work full time. So
You have to stop calling it a side job, because it's not. You have two businesses, they're on different, you know, they're just different sizes that take different amounts of your attention. That's all.
cool, but together it's still, I'm trying to not be I think it's because I still have those messages, like, this is why I'm the right person for the job that I do, is that I have that messages like, oh, well, that must be a side job because I'm not spending all my time and I'm not stressed out, so it must be something fun, it must not be a job. And so, I mean, and that's kind of like, that could be helpful to lawyers or to other business builders, like, you know, make it like not a job, just something that you want to do, and maybe you can be more mindful about the time. But to answer your question, so at this point, I'll say where I am now, and then maybe give some tips of how I got here.
Perfect.
Right now. Yeah. Right. I'm trying to be, this month I'm talking a lot about authenticity. I'm trying to talk more about myself. I've gotten that feedback too. I'm like, all right, I think it's a little boring. We all do, right? It's a little boring, but okay. I'll tell you about me. It's a puzzle. I look at it like a puzzle, productivity. Like, okay, how little work could I do? Not work, effort, energy. How much, you know, can I pull back on my energy and to get better results? And that's what productivity is. I've done so many talks on productivity. It comes from like products, from producing things, and it's literally inputs and outputs. And business, like manufacturing businesses, are looking, when they're looking at productivity, they're like, okay, some measure of inputs, and then comparing that with outputs, and that's how you decide you're productive. So that's the same thing with service providers. Our input is time, but I think it's mostly something else, not so quantifiable and so personal, like you said, is energy, depending so many things, so many, like what your personal preferences, your position financially, you know, your other obligations, family obligations, like, you know, how do you want to live? And some people may want to work 24/7, and that's totally respectable if that's a conscious decision and not imposed by anybody else. It's like, I just like to work all the time. Okay. Like, that's what you do. And so making that decision that, however, are you working 24/7 and you can not be productive, right? Like someone else who worked 10 hours a week and is having different results. And so then also looking at the results, not being, so, you know, what my first book, The New Billable Hour, and my program, New Billable Hour, is like, maybe not look at hours or the way we think. It's not like, okay, I put in these many hours, like, what results did I get? Who did I help? How many people did I reach? I like to measure it like just the depth of the results I'm getting with clients. Are they able to move forward in their lives? Are they, is did something unlock for them? So then they're on their path. Are they moving forward? Are they moving away from my program better than when they started? And to constantly figuring out how to measure that. And, I have that ability, like, like just naturally, I think that intuitive ability, but there are people that can help you with that. You can ask your clients, literally see what they want. Did they get what they want? So yeah, so that's where I am now about productivity, is really looking at that. And if I feel depleted and I'm not I'm not getting the results I need, then I need to switch something. And it's usually related. If I'm depleted, I'm kind of spinning my wheels anyway. And so then I have to pull back on the energy. And I like that. And that's the definition of personal spiritual growth, I think, the journey that we're on. And so that's where we're headed. But for all of you who maybe are trying to figure out how to balance it all, it's like this, I say when I talk, like, you can do it all, just not at the same time, and that means yes, monotask, don't multitask, but like kind of bigger than that, like work on one project at a time. And Liz, you have helped me with this too, because I was like, I want a podcast and I want to do this and I want to do that. It's like, and then I have idea, and then, there's no energy to implement, right? Because we have a lot of creative energy. A lot of entrepreneurs do this because we want an outlet for our creativity. And so it's really being focused, and it's hard. You have to be really disciplined to be like, okay, I'm going to do this one thing. I'm going to create a program. I'm going to create one program. And when that's going, okay, maybe I can create another one. Okay, I'm going to be writing this book, or I'm going to be working with clients one-on-one, and to put attention and give it the care it needs. And so then later you can play more. And I think everyone has an example of that. Probably anything. Diet, self-care, how to plan a vacation, like going to school. Like we have to gradually go into this habit. But the idea is very energetic. I'm just going all in, Liz. So that's really what I teach. Like, how can we manage our energy? And of course, if what I'm saying is all weird, get really practical, read my books. And there's steps that you can follow about how to find your center and figure out who you are and what you want to do in this world, and how to best leverage your own self to help others.
Awesome. Back to what you were talking about in terms of the idea, the fact that you're talking with people about whether they're, a junior partner or a worker bee or have their own law firm, everybody in those kinds of positions and that kind of work, so many times it's just, I can't do it this way. This format doesn't work for me. And it's often because the business model, the pricing models, how you're working with client models don't feel good for any party involved either, which is why I think legal in particular has such a bad rap out there in the community, right? And the reality is, just there's so many different ways to do that successfully. We have a mutual friend who is still practicing law, and she's moved to a fixed fee situation so that there isn't this whole, it's about the outcome and it's value for dollars versus dollars for hours. And it's being able to sit and look at, if we want to talk about, bringing it down to a granular level, looking at, are you excited about working with a client, whether you're a coach, an attorney, a CPA, whatever you are you excited about working with them based on the contract, right? Because sometimes we get this we're excited and then we get scared, or we throw out a number, or we have a bad contract. And then we just are like, no, I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
And then we don't show up well and the client isn't happy. And so being able to show up authentically, feeling good, feeling energetically connected to the work you're doing, to the price tag you put on it, is super important.
Yes. Yeah, it's interesting, people's work settings. And the majority of my clients do have their own firms. They just have more control over their funds and their time. But I have worked with clients who are employees. I like to think employees or self-employed. And some of the shifts you can make internally can help you be in the system too, because I think we have to change systems from within, like we were talking about. And this billable hour system is broken. However, our industry, the legal profession, is holding on very tight, but it's just like everything right now is crumbling, it's going to crumble. And so we just have to, I mean, we can make decisions for leaving our jobs, but that's not always people's option. But working with what there is, you know, so that's the other thing, energetically, like, okay, this system is broken. What can I bring to it? So I just released a podcast yesterday about lawyer fragility. It's a little controversial. I want it to be controversial, at least. Maybe it's not. But this idea that, so white fragility, this is my understanding of it, is that it's really hard to take responsibility, like for I hope it's okay I'm talking about race, but I'm going to. I decided I'm going to. With everything happening in the world, I'm like, I'm not holding back anymore. The simple concept, it's really good if people don't know about that. It's taking, you know, as a I'm not a white person, but the author talks about it, being a white person is just taking on that responsibility for white, I don't know, I don't want to say supremacy, privilege, white privilege, right? It's really scary. So it's kind of like this deflecting it and being fragile. And that is what is going on when I heard that, I'm like, that's what's going on in the legal industry. Like, our system's broken, but in order to win, in order to help our clients, we have to play. Mm-hmm. And this comes up a lot, and it pulls at our heartstrings. Like, yes, there's the money thing, but the money thing is related to like, sometimes you have to like work more hours on a case to get a result when we could have done it a different way and gotten that same result or a better result for a client, right? Like litigation, you know, you need to do all these things and posture and do all these things so then the other side knows you're serious, and then you can come to an agreement. And in immigration too, and a lot of my clients are immigration clients, and I told them that, you know, I work really hard for my clients, but I also am very aware that I'm playing a game, and that I need to know that my clients know that. And that really like eases a lot of the pain I think that lawyers have of being in a law firm that the system isn't working, being in a service model, whether it's billable hours or sometimes for immigration lawyers, flat rate works against us actually, because it's a flat rate and then clients aren't respecting the time because they're like, whatever. And then so everyone's chasing after their clients.
Yeah. You have to have really strong boundaries for sure for that business model.
Yeah. And it's there's no answer, right? It's something we have to figure out. And the main thing is, good you brought up boundaries, because I feel like I talk and write about boundaries all of the time. They shift and you learn, you know, you learn yourself, like, okay, that didn't work. What can work now? So about the lawyer fragility, and I don't know if I'm answering your question. However, but being in any system that's not working and we're part of it, it's going to take time for things to really change. So I don't want to like have this, you know, promote this idea that like, we're going to just change it all. Like, you know, yay. Like, no, it's super broken. And step one, you don't need to change your life. You went to law school, you woke up one day and you're like, what is this? You are correct. It's a bit of a mess. So we have to start with ourselves. It's, you know, start with ourselves to make changes in others, to speak up a little bit, to do things a little differently, lead. So my third book is about leadership. How can you lead from wherever you are? How can you lead your clients? Clients are, you know, a lot of lawyers blame clients for expecting them to be a certain way. We'll teach them, you know, lead and be like, okay, yes, maybe this is what I did before or other lawyers have done before, but how about we do it this way? Something so slight in boundaries or something so like a small shift. And then if we all do this, we know energetically things will change. And they're totally changing. A lot of amazing lawyers are doing awesome things.
Yeah, it's a big topic for sure. And I appreciate you sharing that insight. I think it's really important, particularly in this moment, because there are a lot of people who are like, what is happening? it doesn't feel good. It seems like we are having problems and I don't know where to start.
Yes.
I think that's a good reminder because we can all just start with ourselves and then we'll see where it goes. What has been one of the most surprising things to you since you have started the productivity business?
Oh, that's a good question. So many, every day is a surprise. That's why I like it. I have to say, like, I'm surprised with the results and getting results so quickly. I see a lot of marketing where people are like, I'm going to teach you how to, it took me a long time to figure this out and I'm going to teach it to you really fast. And sometimes I do those programs, I'm like, that didn't happen. And so then it's happening for my clients. And I think that's why I have like this push pull with my own marketing. Like, I don't want to talk about, like, even now I'm feeling uncomfortable. I'm like, no, people like, and it's, people are having these results. And it's like I said, I think it's what I've cultivated in myself. I've made enough shifts that I can also identify who's ready and I can take them to where they need to go.
Mhm.
It's not a quick fix. It's not necessarily like pleasant the whole time, but it's like lasting and
Mhm.
it's real. And it's hard to find that right now in anything, I think, in any service industry. So it's been surprising that I continue to be able to get results for clients.
It doesn't surprise me. If it's okay that we sort of share this, you and I have been having this ongoing conversation because in the coaching world, there's this mantra by business coaches out there where we don't give too much.
Oh,
We
yeah.
don't, we have to stagger the results that we help people get so that they will buy again. So they will, work with us in an 8-week program and then they'll come into some kind of, longer term or higher dollar value. And it's a very common business model. There's nothing wrong with the business model. I have plenty of clients who are rocking that business model. It works really effectively for them. What's interesting for you, and we had a specific conversation about this, which was, people are getting really good results when they work with me over a 6 to 8 week period. And then they're good and they're done. So what does that mean for the business? Which I find like this is a fascinating puzzle for us to figure out, right? Like, and I just bring it up because I think it's important for all of us to remember. I'm always saying there's a million different ways to build a business. There is a way to not follow necessarily the traditional coaching model and still be successful. One of the things we talked about was that's fine. Let's let them go. They may come back later. They may not. There will still be people who love what you're doing and want to stay in your sphere. And they have proven that they will, do different levels of things with you. But I think it's important as business owners that we ask ourselves what our true goal is. And if it's only to make money, and we're doing it at the behest of or at the detriment to our clients' trajectory, I think that needs a deep dive look, right? I mean, so you're basically saying I will go with you as far as you need to go. If you feel really good about our work, I'm not going to change what I offer in the beginning just so that you have to like hang on to my coattails longer.
Yeah, no, it's totally fine that you brought that up. I'm so happy to talk about that. Yeah. Not just the self-development world, the business consulting world, that's the model. That's how you make $1 million.
Right.
Like you
You
basically
do an initial assessment and then you do the next phase for 10 times the price. And then you do another phase where you wrap back around to make sure it was done. Like there's nothing wrong with this if you're truly serving the client. But ...
Yeah. And you make them dependent on you essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why consultants have a bad rep. So I'm changing my title. Did I tell you? From productivity consultant to productivity strategist, because that's more what I do. I'm like, I'm not consultant. I'm not going to tell you what to do. And I'm not going to charge you a bunch of money and be like, here, do it this way. Not at all. I'm here to strategize with you what works for you. And that's why it works. It's like people are taking ownership for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I think that we're in our society, in our world, where the money stuff is so mixed up with having a successful business and what success is, and both ways. Like I live in a community where it's like people like don't even want to deal with money at all. And so then you're poor. And then that's a badge of honor. I'm so poor because I care about my clients. It's like, there's a way I mean, I think that we're figuring that out, just like we're figuring out everything. There must be a way where you can take care of yourself and take care of others, and money is the conduit for that. And so exactly, like I think those models are good for making a lot of money, and they're people like that's what they want to do. And I know that some people are like, I want to make a lot of money and then I want to do something else, you know, or I want to give it all away or whatever. And as long as they're being ethical, like you and I can't judge that. However, what is our mission? What is our vision? And for me, I remember in this in this conversation that I want to reach as many people as possible. And so I think I could take people, because it's so fast is the other thing. Often people need a break, and they've told me that, like, I need a break because it's like, okay, for a whole year I could go gentle with you and charge you more, and then, you know, then you wouldn't need a break and you'll need another year, but I'm like, here it is, okay, next. And I've had to search, but I've had that kind of mentorship, and I needed a break, you know, because I'm like, oh, I could totally do more, but like that was like big, and I need to see how that, when I say that, like that realization, that shift,
A new perspective needs to
right.
settle a little bit sometimes.
And we have old habits we need to unwind. We have to day to day see what it looks like. You're yourself, but like a little different. What are you doing? You know, are different relationships, different things you do falling away? What are you bringing in? So it takes time. And so it's very empowering when clients are like, I need to go take care of other things, and they're very clear. There's no drama around it. I think I told you that. Same results, and it depends, what people are ready for too. They may not be like, you know, that first program you get certain results, and then I do, just like we're talking about, people are like, bye. There's a big percentage who are like, I'm not ready to, like, I need more. I need more right now. I'm open right now, and I want to take care of this.
And this is working, and this is good.
Yeah, like this is the time. There's no other time, you know.
Well, and for listeners, you know, I don't mean to poo-poo business models and whatever version. I think the whole point is, you know, that distinction between strategy and consultation is a really good one. So I'm glad that you brought that up, because from my perspective, we just need to find the version that feels best in terms of how you want to work with people, the kind of results that you want to have them have, your version of integrity, you know, and it's totally fine that your version of business looks different than somebody else's and
yeah,
down the line.
And it's totally fine for people to want to use a business model that makes a lot of money.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
You know, people are coming, a lot of my clients too, maybe they're coming from a background where they want to build wealth.
Mm-hmm.
I've been thinking about this a lot this last week. And I've been talking to my own parents about it and about them immigrating, and they came here to build wealth, you know, and so I'm a beneficiary of that. And so I have I'm more American and have lifestyle, but if you're an immigrant, if you're come from low income, if you're of color, you want to build wealth, like freaking build wealth and do it in a, you know, if you're offering us, if you feel good and integrity with what you're offering, value it and charge for it. Mm-hmm. And you're not taking advantage of people. So that's great. And yeah, you have to like, you know, stick with it. But yeah, so I see it, and I think it's great. And what I've been trying to figure out is, okay, there's so many models, but what's the model for me? And if it's not there, I want to create it. Mm-hmm. Which is what we're talking about, right? You can build whatever you want. And there are other like if you need to do something really fast, there are great models that work. You don't need to build it, and you can do it for a period of time. You don't need to do it forever, because that's the whole thing with these like models where you make a lot of money. I'm looking, and it kind of it caps out. Like once you did the thing, what's next?
There always needs to be something next. If we put ourselves on the treadmill of entrepreneurship, you know, in that sort of better, more kind of stuff that we as Americans really love to think about the world that way, to our detriment a lot of times, I think. But if we're in that track, then your business then can sometimes become a grind. And so I think it's just really important, again, from the boundary standpoint, to just recognize what we're building, what it's going to take from us to get from point A to point B, if point B is our big goal, and, just acknowledging, yes, this is where I want to go. Here's what it's going to take me to get there. We're all in, because that's far more effective than, I think I'm supposed to want that. I'm going to kind of half work toward it, and then we don't get the results we want. We feel crappy about what we're doing. We feel like a failure, and that's never ending.
One easy analogy is law school. Actually going through law school, like I'm going to invest this much money, this much time, and I'm going all in, right? You can't do it half-assed. I saw people had to leave law school because they're like, I'm just going to see, like, no, you got to like
hang out, see what happens.
Yeah. It's an investment. And I just see people who are like, oh, maybe I want to be a lawyer. No, like you have to at least like for a short period of time be like, I'm going to do this to get to this point, and then I'm going to reevaluate. And I know a lot of people, I couldn't do this, but a lot of people like, I'm going to have this job, I'm going to learn as much as I can. One example would be like Michelle Obama. If you've read, I'm talking about all people today. So if you've read her book, Becoming, she talks about her legal career, and she grew up poor, and her parents were, I always forget, they were like working class. I was going to say, I forgot what color, but working class, and they emphasized education for their children. And so they did all the things, and she was bused to the good schools, and she got scholarships, and she went to all the, and she just like kept focused to get to a point. And I think, she talks about it in her book, but that's a really good example, to kind of push yourself to get out of your situation and not let your situation define you. And then, we know how that story unfolded, and, and then you can set this, like, maybe she wouldn't have the platform. She just started a podcast, I saw, actually, like this week. So, right. So like, she did that. And now she could talk about it, and she could talk about her energy now. And so there's so many different ways to live your life, and we don't need to do what the person next to us is doing.
Perfect. All right. I have 2 more questions for you. One, you and I have been working together for a couple of years now.
Yes.
What has been the benefit of that from your perspective?
I like it. Direct, huh?
I was trying to figure out how to say that differently, and I just figured out why.
Yeah, I know. With me, it's fine. And I think I like it. Well, I like how you're direct. I like how I can be direct with you, but that's not the answer to the question. So what benefit has it been? I'll share another personal thing. What I told you the other day, last week, is that I read your marketing emails sometimes, and I'm like, I feel ashamed because I'm not doing, like, Liz is describing things, and I still have that problem or something, some crazy, we talked it through. And what's been interesting is, yes, we have marketing, and there are like a million ways to do things, and sometimes things might hit in a certain way. What's been the benefit is to sort all that out. And it's not just like, okay, like, we're going to do the finances this way because this is the way you're going to make money. It's like, it's like been ugly and bumpy, and like me thinking I have to do a certain way, and you trying to use the tools you have because I'm like, so it's like, it's been this push-pull, and that's really helped me grow. I think it's helped you grow. I really like, I like with my clients when we're both growing, and I'm as I'm looking at my service providers, I need my service providers to grow with me in our relationship, but also in how you're delivering services, right? So if I show up, and I know not just you, my other mentors, like, I'm kind of special and unique. I think we all are, but I've had this where they're like, I usually had like, like on the whatever bell curve, they're like, I usually have clients that, like, at least 2 people have said this, like, are either spend all their money and don't have any money, or like want to make a lot of money, and money is their focus. And it's like, neither of those are for me. And maybe that's so it's like, I have this something else, and I don't know what it is. And the benefit is you've been like, it doesn't have to be called anything. This is me. And I get to decide day by day. I get to decide what I want, how I want my money story to reflect who I am, or how do I reflect in my money story, or because it's a story, really. It's more energy, and the more I learn about it, yeah. So I came to you because I knew I had some messed up stuff that I'm, and it was affecting my businesses. So let me give you a good testimonial. It was affecting my businesses and my ability to have the impact I wanted to have. And so just even having, I don't know if you remember, of course you do. Like, I didn't even want you to look at my numbers.
No.
I'm like,
For the listener, Ritu spent like the first 12 months of our relationship, and she was like, I will download all of my statements. I don't want to give you access to anything. And just for clarity, like, which is totally fine. It just adds an extra layer of complexity because then I have to ping you to get whatever.
Yeah.
We don't work that way anymore. But so it took like a full year before Ritu was like, why don't I just give you access to this stuff so that when you need a statement and the stuff isn't happening automatically, you can just go in. I'm like, great, let's do that.
And so I want to say, for your listeners and for your potential clients, like, you get to do that though. Just like, and I don't know if other service providers would do, like, because that was clearly my money thing. I needed to keep control of it. I'm also a lawyer.
Yeah.
And for my other bit, no one had ever looked at my numbers. Like, maybe I worked with tax people, but even they now I'm realizing all the horrors from I did my own P&L. I'm like, here you go. They're like, that's great.
Let's assume it's right. Well, and just as a little aside,
the IRS is not watching.
Well, that's the thing about the tax work, even bookkeeping work, right? We hire people thinking that they're going to give us a bunch of feedback. They're going to ask a bunch of questions. And most of the time, depending on what level of preparer you're working with or what level of, experienced bookkeeper you're working with, they don't. Their job is to take whatever you give them. So there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah,
but you may have missed out on some, we have to assume that then what we're doing for ourselves is accurate. Hopefully it is.
Yeah, and obviously I had a very simple business, and
you were making money, you paid your taxes, it was all good.
Exactly. I ran a cash business. Like, I remember I had an employee who would work and she's like, you run a very clean business. I'm like, yeah, and that's from being, I think, I don't know, Asian or something, right? Or like Indian immigrants. Like, we don't borrow money, because that would be complicated, and I don't have bills pay. What do you call it? Bill payables.
Yes. Payable.
I would just be cash.
I'd
be like, you pay me and I do the thing. And then
it is the simplest form.
I had a bank account and I put
brilliant.
And then I would buy things.
Yeah, I remember you were there. There was the debt conversation has been an ongoing conversation for us because you were brought up with the mentality of, we don't buy things unless we have cash to pay for them, which is
no debt.
An incredible way to look at the financial world. It's great. I love it.
Yeah.
But it sometimes can hold us back if there is something that we know is going to move us forward and we just don't happen to have cash on hand. And that is where a debt vehicle or a loan or a credit cards or whatever can come into play. So there's all kinds of ways to skin this business cat. We just have to find the right one for you. Yeah. That's a horrible mental.
I know. I'm like, okay. I don't have a cat. It might offend cat lovers.
I think it's a common phrase back in the day. Anyway, final question for you. Everybody gets asked this. What does Zen money, the concept of Zen money, mean to you?
We talk a lot, you and I, about money needs a place to go. There was a book I read, The Energy of Money, back in the day. So what Zen money means to me is this idea of flow. And all of us, I think, because of our stories and our experiences, it's inevitable. We have we block the flow, especially in the American culture, Western culture. Money is this like this lens, but this filter placed on everything, on valuing ourselves and how we're constantly marketed to. And you have money, you'll feel better, but like zero people do. But we still strive. We still, so this idea of Zen money is about unblocking that flow, giving money a place to go both ways. I years ago did this program for women entrepreneurs, and it's like, we need to create a safe space for wealth. And I think for a lot of women, a lot of people who don't feel like they deserve it, if there's not a safe space, it's going to go out. And so there are a lot of people who live happy lives, but the money just doesn't stay. And and then they feel a little sad. I mean, they're great, they're successful, but they feel a little sad, like, oh, I wish I could give to charity, or I wish. And The Soul of Money, the book that you suggested too, was building a lifestyle or a culture in your life about giving is just that. If you just decide, I'm going to give money, and that's part of what I do, the money will come to you, so then you can give it. And that's like a little woo for the end, but it really is. So it is woo, but it's also very practical, which is my specialty. It's both. It's like, yeah, the money's stuck, but like literally, like if your parents were really cheap, and you're going to not buy things that will help you grow your business. If your parents just spent all their money and are in debt all the time, that's what you're going to do. And so we need to learn that about ourselves and figure out if that's working, because it's always a choice, and how we can shift it without changing who we are and where we come from. Because I think that's a lot of what these patterns are about. It's like, well, who am I then? If I, like for me, we didn't have debt. I'm like, if I have debt, who am I? Like, am I still like my parents' child? Like, am I a good person? So yeah, Send Money is about unlocking the flow and having a place for your money to go out and in a way that's natural and healthy.
Ooh, I like it. I have to write that down.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for spending all this time with us, talking about productivity and all the good things. We'll put your information in the show notes, but if you want to also tell us, is there a good place for people to go to find you?
Yes, it's also shifting. I'm finally working on my marketing. Right now, you can go to newbillablehour.com. The first step is to get my book for free. Perfect. So I have a free library membership, and in the library, so you join the library for free, and in the library you can get a PDF or an audio of the New Billable Hour, and join the email list and get more information. So newbillablehour.com.
Awesome. We'll make sure there are links. Thank you so much, Ritu. I really appreciate you joining us today.
Thank you, Liz. Thanks.